The real test of intelligence is not how much you speak when everything is calm. It is how much control you keep when emotions are loud, pressure is high, and silence becomes your only real strength. One of the biggest signs of intelligence is not how loudly someone speaks. It is how carefully they protect their energy. Smart people eventually realize that constantly reacting to everything is exhausting. Every argument, every opinion, every unnecessary explanation slowly drains emotional energy that could have been used for something far more meaningful. That is why intelligent people often become quieter over time. Not because they are weak. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they understand that peace is more valuable than winning every conversation. Most people react automatically. The moment something bothers them, they respond emotionally. The moment someone disagrees with them, they feel the need to defend themselves immediately. The moment they feel misunderstood, they rush to explain everything. But smart people learn something important. Not every situation deserves access to your energy. Because energy is limited, every emotional reaction costs something internally. Every unnecessary argument creates mental noise. Every moment spent trying to prove yourself to people who already misunderstand you drains focus from your own growth and peace. And over time, intelligent people begin recognizing this pattern. Clearly, they notice how emotionally reactive environments create exhaustion. They notice how constant drama keeps people mentally distracted. They notice how some conversations are not meant for understanding at all. They are simply battles of ego. And once you understand that, silence starts becoming powerful. Because silence protects your mind from unnecessary chaos. You stop feeling the need to react to every opinion. You stop carrying the emotional burden of correcting everyone. You stop wasting your peace trying to convince people who have already decided not to understand you. And this creates emotional freedom. Most people do not realize how much energy they lose daily through constant reaction. Their mind is always involved in something, explaining, defending, arguing, proving, comparing, and because of that, their inner world never becomes quiet. But intelligent people begin choosing their battles carefully. They start asking themselves, is this conversation actually meaningful? Will reacting improve anything? Is protecting my peace more valuable than proving my point? And many times, the answer is yes. That is why silence is not weakness. Silence is controlled energy. It is the ability to remain emotionally grounded even when the world around you is noisy. And this control becomes more important as you grow. Because the more aware you become, the more you realize that many people are emotionally driven by impulse. They speak without thinking, react without understanding, judge without observing. But intelligent people slow down before reacting. They observe first, they listen first, they think first, and because of that, they waste less emotional energy on things that do not truly matter. This does not mean they never speak. Smart people absolutely speak when necessary. They speak when something has value, purpose, or meaning. But they no longer speak simply to satisfy emotional impulse. That is the difference. Because emotional impulse wants immediate reaction. Intelligence values awareness before reaction. And once you begin understanding this, your entire relationship with silence changes. Silence stops feeling uncomfortable. It stops feeling weak. It stops feeling like something must always be filled with noise. Instead, silence becomes protection. Protection for your focus. Protection for your peace. Protection for your emotional stability. And strangely, the quieter you become internally, the more clearly you begin seeing life. You notice people more accurately. You understand situations more deeply. You become less emotionally controlled by outside noise, because your energy is no longer scattered everywhere. And eventually, you realize something powerful. The smartest people are not the ones constantly trying to be heard. They are the ones wise enough to know when silence is more valuable than speech. And the moment you stop giving your energy to every opinion, every argument, and every unnecessary reaction is the moment your mind finally becomes quiet enough to protect the peace most people lose trying to prove themselves to the world. One of the biggest reasons intelligent people become quieter over time is because they realize how much awareness is lost through constant talking. Most people think speaking more makes them appear smarter, more important, or more respected. But in reality, constantly reacting, explaining, and filling every silence often weakens observation. Because when you are always speaking, you are rarely fully listening. And listening is where understanding begins. Smart people understand that life reveals itself more clearly when the mind becomes still enough to observe. But observation becomes difficult when your attention is constantly focused on reacting outwardly. Think about how most conversations happen. People are not truly listening. They are waiting for their turn to speak. They are preparing responses, while the other person is still talking. Their mind is busy trying to impress, defend, explain, or prove something. And because of that, they miss what is actually happening underneath the surface. They miss tone. They miss emotion. They miss intention. They miss patterns. Because awareness requires silence internally. That is why intelligent people often speak less. Not because they are disconnected, but because they are paying attention more deeply than everyone else in the room. They are observing behavior, observing energy, observing reactions. And observation gives them understanding that loudness never can. Because the more emotionally reactive a person becomes, the less clearly they think. Constant talking creates impulsive behavior. You start speaking before fully understanding your thoughts. You start reacting emotionally instead of responding intelligently. And this creates mental noise. Mental noise weakens clarity. When the mind becomes addicted to constant expression, it loses the ability to pause, reflect, and analyze deeply. Everything becomes immediate reaction. But intelligent people value the pause. That pause before speaking. That moment of observation before reacting. That silence where understanding quietly forms, and that pause changes everything. Because many truths reveal themselves only when you stop interrupting the moment with unnecessary words. You begin noticing contradictions in people's behavior. You begin recognizing emotional patterns. You start understanding what someone truly means instead of only hearing what they say. And this deeper awareness creates wisdom. That is why quiet people are often underestimated. Others mistake silence for weakness or lack of confidence because society often associates loudness with intelligence. But true intelligence rarely needs constant display. Real intelligence is comfortable observing quietly. It does not need attention every moment. It does not need to dominate every conversation. It does not feel emotionally threatened by silence. Instead, silence becomes a tool for understanding. And the more you practice it, the more clearly you begin seeing life. You notice how emotionally reactive people expose themselves quickly. You notice how unnecessary talking often reveals insecurity. You notice how people unintentionally show their intentions through small details most others completely ignore. Because when your mind is quiet, your awareness becomes sharper. You stop being distracted by the need to constantly express yourself. Your energy becomes more focused. Your thoughts become more intentional. And because of that, your words also begin carrying more weight. This is another thing intelligent people understand. Words become more powerful when they are used carefully. People. Listen more closely to someone who does not speak constantly. Why? Because silence creates presence. It creates depth. It creates the feeling that when this person speaks, there is meaning behind it. But when someone talks endlessly, their words slowly lose impact. And eventually, intelligent people stop trying to fill every silence because they realize silence itself often communicates more than unnecessary explanation ever could. They become comfortable observing instead of performing, comfortable understanding instead of reacting, comfortable thinking deeply instead of speaking impulsively. And the moment you stop feeling the need to constantly speak and finally allow yourself to observe life quietly, is the moment your awareness becomes sharp enough to notice truths most people miss while they are too busy trying to be heard. One of the biggest differences between loud minds and intelligent minds is depth. Loud minds react quickly. They speak instantly, express every emotion immediately, and respond before fully understanding what is happening. But quiet minds operate differently. Quiet minds process life deeply before reacting. And this is why smart people often stay silent, because they are thinking beyond the surface. While most people are reacting emotionally to what is obvious, intelligent people are analyzing patterns underneath what is visible. They are trying to understand why something is happening, not just what is happening. And that deeper level of thinking requires silence, because depth cannot fully exist inside constant reaction. Think about how many people make decisions emotionally, without reflection. Someone says one negative thing and they react instantly. A small problem appears and panic immediately takes over. Their emotions move faster than their awareness. But intelligent people pause, not because they are confused, not because they are weak, but because they understand the importance of processing before reacting. They know that immediate emotional reactions often create regret. So instead of allowing emotions to control their behavior instantly, they step back internally and observe the situation first. And this creates wisdom. Because wisdom is not just intelligence. Wisdom is emotional awareness combined with deep observation. Quiet people spend more time reflecting internally. They replay situations in their mind, not to overthink emotionally, but to understand patterns more clearly. They notice how people behave under pressure. They notice repeated emotional habits. They notice contradictions between words and actions. And because they spend more time observing than reacting, their understanding becomes deeper than most people realize. This is why intelligent people are often misunderstood. From the outside, silence can look passive, but internally, the mind is highly active. It is analyzing, connecting ideas, observing energy, and processing information carefully. Because deep thinkers do not only hear words, they study meaning. They pay attention to timing, to emotion, to behavior, to silence itself. And this level of awareness naturally makes a person quieter. Because once you begin understanding life more deeply, you stop feeling the need to react to everything emotionally. You realize that many situations are not as simple as they first appear. You understand that people often speak from pain, insecurity, ego, or fear, and that understanding creates patience. You stop rushing to judge. You stop rushing to argue. You stop rushing to prove yourself. Instead, you begin thinking carefully before speaking because you understand how powerful reactions can become. This is another reason intelligent people speak less. They know words carry consequences. Most people speak to release emotion. Smart people speak with intention, and intention requires thought. That is why silence becomes a natural part of intelligence. It creates space for reflection. It allows the mind to process information without emotional pressure. It gives awareness, time to develop before action takes place. And this internal processing creates stronger decisions. Because many mistakes happen when people react too quickly. They allow temporary emotion to control permanent actions. They speak without thinking. They judge without understanding. But intelligent people recognize the danger of impulsive reactions. So they slow down internally. And in that slowness, they begin seeing things more clearly than others do. They notice what people avoid saying. They recognize hidden motivations. They understand emotional dynamics most people completely miss. Because quiet observation sharpens perception, and over time, intelligent people become even quieter because they realize not everything requires immediate expression. Some things are better understood slowly. Some truths reveal themselves only through patience and deep reflection. That is why silence often becomes the home of intelligence. Not empty silence, but thoughtful silence. Observant silence, controlled silence. The kind of silence that allows the mind to see beyond emotion and understand life at a deeper level than constant noise ever could. And the moment you stop reacting impulsively to every situation and finally allow yourself to think deeply before speaking is the moment your awareness becomes powerful enough to understand truths most people are too emotionally loud to ever notice. One of the Most interesting effects of silence is that it changes the way you see people completely. When you are constantly talking, reacting, and expressing yourself, your attention is mostly focused outward, on what you are going to say next, how you are being perceived, and how you can respond immediately. In that state, you miss a lot of what is actually happening around you. But when you become quiet, something powerful shifts. You start observing instead of reacting. And in that observation, people begin revealing who they truly are, often without even realizing it. Because human behavior is far more honest than human speech. People can control their words. They can carefully choose what they say. They can present a version of themselves that feels acceptable or impressive. But when you stop filling every silence with your own voice, you begin noticing the things that words were hiding. You notice tone. You notice hesitation. You notice emotional reactions that come out naturally. You notice patterns in how people behave when they are not being directly questioned. And slowly, you start seeing beyond the surface level of communication. This is why quiet people often understand situations more clearly, because they are not distracted by the need to respond immediately. They are free to observe fully. And in that observation, truth becomes more visible. For example, when someone speaks too much, they often unintentionally reveal inconsistencies in their own story. Or when someone becomes emotionally reactive quickly, they expose their internal state more clearly than they intended. Even silence in others becomes meaningful, because silence itself carries information when you are paying attention carefully. But most people never notice these things because they are too busy participating in the conversation rather than observing it. They are focused on being heard, not on understanding what is being revealed. And that is a major difference between loud awareness and quiet awareness. Quiet awareness sees patterns. Loud awareness often misses them. When you reduce your own talking, your mind becomes more sensitive to the environment around you. You begin noticing subtle emotional shifts in people. You start understanding intentions behind words rather than just the words themselves. And this awareness gives you clarity, because you are no longer reacting emotionally to every statement. You are observing behavior over time instead of judging based on single moments. And this is where real understanding develops. You begin realizing that many people do not say exactly what they mean. Some speak from insecurity. Some speak from fear. Some speak to impress. Some speak to hide their true feelings. But silence allows you to see beyond all of that. Because when you are not constantly involved in the noise, your mind becomes an observer. And observation reveals truth that participation often hides. This is why quiet people often seem more perceptive. They are not guessing, they are noticing. They are not assuming, they are observing. They are not reacting emotionally. They are interpreting patterns carefully, and over time, this creates emotional intelligence. You begin understanding people without needing them to explain everything. You recognize behavior before it becomes obvious. You sense tension before it is spoken. You understand dynamics that others completely miss, not because you are doing more, but because you are saying less and observing more. And this shift changes your entire interaction with life. You stop being easily influenced by surface-level words. You stop reacting to every emotional trigger. You stop getting pulled into unnecessary conflicts because you can already see what is happening beneath them. And this creates emotional stability, because awareness protects you from confusion. And eventually, you realize something powerful. Silence does not disconnect you from people. It connects you to their truth in a way constant talking never can. And the moment you stop needing to fill every space with your own voice and finally allow yourself to observe life quietly, is the moment you begin seeing people clearly for who they really are, not just for what they choose to say. One of the quiet signs of real intelligence is the moment a person no longer feels the need to constantly prove themselves. At the beginning of life, most people speak a lot because they are unconsciously trying to establish their worth. They want to be seen as capable, important, smart, or successful. So they explain themselves more than necessary, defend themselves quickly, and try to make sure others understand their value. But over time, something changes in truly aware people. They begin to realize that validation from others is temporary, unstable, and often unnecessary. And that realization slowly changes their behavior. They stop over-explaining. They stop constantly defending their choices. They stop trying to convince everyone of their worth. Because they begin to understand something very important. Your value does not increase when people approve of you, and it does not decrease when people misunderstand you. But when someone is still seeking validation externally, they remain emotionally dependent on how others perceive them. Every opinion starts to matter too much. Every judgment feels personal. Every misunderstanding feels like something that must be corrected immediately, and this creates emotional noise. Because when you are constantly trying to be understood by everyone, your energy becomes scattered. You are always adjusting yourself, always explaining yourself, always trying to be accepted, and over time this weakens inner stability. But intelligent people begin shifting inward. They stop needing constant approval because they start building internal confidence. And internal confidence is very different from external validation. External validation depends on people's reactions. Internal confidence depends on self-understanding. And once that shift happens, silence becomes natural. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they no longer feel pressure to say everything for approval. They begin to understand that most people are too focused on their own perspective to fully understand yours anyway. So instead of wasting energy trying to convince everyone, they choose clarity over explanation. They speak when it is necessary, not when it is emotional. They express when it adds value, not when it seeks approval. And this makes their words more powerful, because when someone speaks less but with clarity, their words carry weight. People listen more carefully because they understand that this person is not speaking from insecurity. They are speaking from awareness. And this is the difference between validation-driven speech and confidence-driven silence. Validation-driven speech is emotional. It is reactive. It is often excessive because it is trying to fill a gap inside. But confidence-driven silence is calm. It is controlled. It is grounded. It does not feel the need to constantly justify existence. And this is why intelligent people often appear more composed. They are no longer trying to win approval in every interaction. They are no longer emotionally dependent on how every conversation ends. They are no longer reacting to every misunderstanding with urgency. Instead, they understand that not everything needs explanation. Not every opinion needs correction. Not every judgment needs response. Not every misunderstanding needs immediate fixing, because peace becomes more important than approval. And when peace becomes your priority, your communication naturally becomes more selective. You begin speaking only when necessary. You begin conserving emotional energy instead of spending it on unnecessary validation cycles. You begin choosing silence when silence protects your inner stability, and over time this creates strength. Because when you are no longer controlled by the need for approval, you become emotionally independent, and emotional independence is one of the highest forms of intelligence. It allows you to remain calm even when misunderstood. It allows you to stay grounded even when not validated. It allows you to continue your path without needing constant external permission, and that is where true confidence is born. Not in proving yourself repeatedly, but in no longer needing to prove yourself constantly. And the moment you stop seeking validation from every voice around you and finally begin trusting your own understanding of who you are is the moment. Silence stops being something you use for approval and starts becoming a reflection of your inner confidence and emotional freedom. One of the most powerful forms of intelligence is emotional control, the ability to remain calm, centered, and aware even when everything around you is loud, chaotic, or emotionally demanding. And silence plays a major role in building that kind of strength. Because when you stop constantly reacting, something very important begins to develop inside you: emotional discipline. Most people lose control of their emotions not because situations are extremely difficult, but because they respond too quickly. The moment something happens, they speak. The moment they feel something, they express it immediately. The moment they are triggered, they react without pausing. And in that instant reaction, they often lose control of the situation and of themselves. But intelligent people begin to notice this pattern. They realize that every reaction does not need to become speech. Every emotion does not need immediate expression. Every situation does not require an instant response. So they start pausing. And in that pause, silence creates space. Space to think clearly. Space to observe fully. Space to choose a better response instead of an automatic reaction. And this space is where emotional control is born. Because silence interrupts impulse. When you are silent, you are no longer feeding emotional reactions immediately. You are giving your mind time to process what is actually happening instead of what it feels like is happening in the moment. And this difference is extremely important. Because emotions are often temporary. They rise quickly, feel intense, and try to push you into immediate action. But intelligent people understand that not every emotional wave deserves action. Some emotions need observation, not reaction. Some situations need patience, not urgency. And silence gives you that patience. It allows you to step back internally, even if you remain physically present in the situation. And that internal step back changes everything because instead of reacting emotionally, you begin responding thoughtfully. And response is very different from reaction. Reaction is fast, emotional, and often impulsive. Response is calm, aware, and intentional. And this difference determines outcomes in many areas of life: relationships, decisions, communication, conflict, and personal growth. That is why silence becomes such a powerful tool. It protects you from saying things you might regret. It protects you from escalating unnecessary conflicts. It protects you from making emotional decisions that you later have to fix. But even deeper than that, silence builds inner strength. Because when you are not constantly expressing every emotional wave, you begin learning how to sit with your thoughts. You begin understanding your emotional patterns more clearly. You begin noticing what triggers you, what disturbs you, and what actually affects your inner stability, and that awareness creates maturity. You stop being controlled by every external situation. You stop letting every opinion disturb your peace. You stop reacting to every emotional moment as if it defines your entire reality. Instead, you begin staying grounded. Even in uncomfortable situations, your mind remains steady. Even in disagreement, your emotions remain controlled. Even in uncertainty, your awareness stays intact. And this stability becomes your strength. Because in a world full of constant noise, emotional control becomes rare power. People may try to pull you into arguments. Situations may try to provoke immediate reactions. Emotions may try to push you into impulsive decisions. But silence gives you the ability to pause all of that internally and choose your response consciously. And that choice is where real power exists, not in speaking more, not in reacting faster, but in staying calm enough to respond wisely. And over time, this discipline transforms you completely. You become someone who does not lose control easily. Someone who does not get carried away by every emotional wave. Someone who can think clearly even when others are overwhelmed. And that kind of presence naturally earns respect, even without trying, because emotional control is visible without words. It is felt in your energy, your calmness, your stability, and eventually you realize something profound. Silence is not just the absence of speech, it is the presence of control, awareness, and inner strength that most people never develop, because they are too busy reacting to everything instead of mastering themselves from within. And the moment you master silence not as absence of speech but as control over reaction and emotion, is the moment you finally become unshakable in a world that constantly tries to disturb your peace.